Well, TRT World's Simon McGregor-Wood caught up with Turkey's Defence Minister Hulusi Akar as he attended the Munich Security Conference. They discussed the threat YPG and Daesh terror groups in Syria pose to Turkey.
There is a lot of discussion here at this conference about Syria, about the Americans withdrawing, and I know that a particular concern to Turkey is what is happening around the town of Manbij. For those of us who don't understand the details of that area, what is it that is happening in Manbij which is such a security threat to Turkey?
You know, the Manbij in the west of the Euphrates and in the town, and in the actually it was populated with the 90% Arab people. But before the operation 2-3 years ago, while the American forces entering the Manbij, they promised at different levels to Turkey they would go there with some elements of the YPG, but after the operation they would pull out all of them from the Manbij. But unfortunately they didn't, they couldn't do that so far. But after that we had a roadmap last year, and according to roadmap we met some individual and then the joint patrols around Manbij to check the situation, and also they promised and then we agreed on the pulling out of the YPG from the Manbij and the pulling out of the whatever they brought to Manbij some heavy weapons, and then the leaving the whole Manbij to the administration of the local people. Many of them already refugees in Turkey. So we hoped they would go back their homes. And then the presence of the almost 1,000 already, 1,000 the YPG, and as soon as possible in coordination with us, in coordination all together, to remove them from Manbij as a first step. At the same time, there is a vetting problem. Within the vetting issue, already we are discussing the American colleagues, and within the upcoming days, we are hoping, we are expecting to have a resolution to the issue as we agreed before.
In terms of the Turkish operations against terrorist groups in that part of the world, the other issue that is being discussed is the victory over Daesh. Some people are worried that if the Americans go, Daesh might be able to come back up. How can you persuade, reassure the world that with Turkey in charge in that space, the war against Daesh will continue effectively?
You remember 2 years ago we had an operation the Euphrates Shield within this area. While we are doing this, there were the most radical Daesh members positioned in that part of the Syria. At the beginning, we hoped, we expected to carry out that operation along with the American forces, and to some extent we made some preparations, and already even we prepared the concept to execute that operation. But unfortunately, within the last minute, they changed their mind, and so we had to carry out that operation by alone. So we did it, and unfortunately, we could neutralize at least 3,000 Daesh members after the hand-to-hand operation. Please remember that Turkish armed forces, along with the Free Syrian Army elements, only ground forces who fought against Daesh hand-to-hand. And fortunately, finally, we could neutralize 3,000 of them in that area.
Meanwhile, Turkey says the situation in Idlib is still not stable, despite efforts to eliminate all terrorists from the area. But de-escalation of violence is still a priority. Turkey's Defence Minister Hulusi Akar explained more about the situation in Syria on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference with TRT World's Simon McGregor-Wood.
The focus of a lot of discussions I know you've been having with your Russian colleagues is what is happening in the Idlib de-escalation zone. I've read, and I'm no expert, that the Russians are a little worried about who is now in charge of the space of Idlib. What is going on there, and why should we or should we not be worried about what is going on there?
Let me say a few things, what happened before, the Geneva process, and then as a complementary of that, the Geneva process, Turkey, Iran, and Russia initiated the Astana process. During the Astana process, the 3-4 areas selected, Kuneitra, Eastern Ghouta, and the Hama, finally Idlib. The 3 out of those 4 secure areas, the safe havens, let's say, already occupied, already seized, depending on your choice. You can select the right word. Because they say, the regime says they didn't made anything over there, just the opposition left the area. But when you look at the pictures after the operation, those towns, you will better understand what happened in that area. We felt a similar thing could happen to the Idlib. So we came together with the Russians, and then we discussed, and then we signed the MOU with Russians on the 17th September. That means we would come together, and then we would establish some observation posts in both sides. Plus, we would provide the ceasefire and the final stability. To some extent, we succeeded. After the signing of that MOU, we have seen that the ceasefire violation 90% decreased. It was only a good number, but at the same time, we would remove the radicals and the heavy weapons from the safe zone, almost 15 to 20 kilometers around Idlib.
Has that happened successfully, that process?
Because of the nature of the terrain, nature of the population, nature of the terrorists, some of those radicals, it was too difficult to complete all of them entirely, but to some extent, also the Russian counterparts noticed that we did a great job over there, and we avoided them to attack their main concern, Hümeymim air base, some attack by some of those groups in Idlib against them. So we can say easily we avoided all of them, but still there are some concern in the minds of the Russian counterparts, but we are working on that. The situation is still critical, still serious in Idlib, I should say, and almost 3.5 million people living over there. And so far, we assume our operation, our activities as a success. Otherwise, at least some of them will need to leave the Idlib. That means another influx of the refugee to Turkey, Europe, maybe to US, United States. This is the success of this operation. So we are in very close contact with the Russian side, and then we are exchanging of the views, exchanging of the intelligence to keep the ceasefire and the stability in all over the Idlib. And then I hope we will succeed it.
Returning to the north of Syria, if I may, there is the idea that Turkey is promoting of a safe zone to protect its security interests. Again, some people, including the Russians, have some doubts about that. Are you succeeding in persuading them of the necessity for a safe zone? And tell us again why such a space would be so crucial for Turkey's security.
It is not concern only for the Russians, but also for the American colleagues. They have some concern in that issue. The bottom line within the problem, the safety and security of our borders and the people, Turkish people. Nobody, no country likes to live with the terrorist groups along their borders. In our border, They are preparing the tunnels, positions, and every day there are going to be some skirmishes. There are going to be some violations. So there are some harassment against the outposts of the Turkish armed forces within the borderline. At this point, let me clarify: never ever we are thinking any kinds of the operation against the ordinary people, against even the Kurdish people or the Arab people. All of them are the brothers. All of them very highly respected by Turkey, and then never ever we have any business with innocent people. Only target for the Turkey, the YPG, the terrorist groups. We are trying to keep to provide the security of our border. That means we have to push them at least 30, 40 kilometers down south, because they are not using only the conventional weapons, ammunition, but also they are using the model planes, drones, against Turkey. For instance, yesterday we witnessed 3 of them. Fortunately, there was no casualty, but anyway, they tried. This is the situation, so everybody should understand what we are trying to do over there.